the Baghdad Battery. In 1936, a German archaeologist named Wilhelm Koenig was cataloging stored objects at the Iraq Museum in Baghdad when he found something that made him stop. A terracotta jar about 14 centimeters tall, sealed with a bitumen stopper. Inside, a copper cylinder roughly 10 centimeters long, itself encasing an iron rod, the iron showing surface corrosion consistent with prolonged acid exposure. Koenig recognized the configuration immediately. Copper, iron, electrolyte. Structurally identical to a galvanic cell, the fundamental design of a voltaic battery is first described by Alessandro Volta in 1800. Koenig dated the jar to the Parthian period, somewhere between 250 BCE and 224 CE, and published a paper in 1938 proposing it was an ancient electrical device. The hypothesis attracted real scientific attention because it was testable. Researchers at General Electric's high-voltage laboratory built working replicas from materials plausibly available in antiquity: grape juice, vinegar, lemon juice, copper sulfate solution. Voltage output ranged from 0.0 imbelit, 8 to 2 volts per cell, with multiple cells potentially producing higher output in series. The object works as a battery. That is reproducible and not in dispute. What has never been established is whether the builders understood what they were producing, whether the electrical function was intentional or incidental to some other purpose, and what any generated electricity would have actually been used for. No ancient text from the Parthian or Sasanian period describing electrical devices, electroplating, or any phenomenon consistent with practical electricity application has ever been found. The battery functions. The intention behind it remains unknown. The Piri Reis Map. In 1513, an Ottoman admiral and cartographer named Piri Reis completed a navigational chart of the Atlantic Ocean, compiled from a collection of source maps he named in his own annotations, charts he attributed to Columbus, older Portuguese navigational documents. The map survives as a single fragment discovered in 1929 at the Topkapi Palace in Istanbul. The European and African Atlantic coastlines are accurate in the way you would expect from a skilled cartographer working with the best available sources in the early 16th century. The controversy is about the bottom of the chart. A continuous coastline runs along the southern boundary, below South America, extending to the right edge of the surviving fragment. Those who argue for an anomalous interpretation point out that this southern landmass shares broad geometric features with the sub-ice bedrock profile of Antarctica as mapped by 20th century seismic surveys. Despite Antarctica not being officially sighted by any expedition until 1823, centuries after the map was drawn, mainstream cartographic historians push back on multiple fronts. Early modern cartographers routinely appended the theoretical southern continent as a counterweight to the known northern landmasses, a tradition with deep roots in classical geography. The geometric similarity to Antarctica depends on selective comparison and approximation, and the map's projection system introduces distortions that make any rigorous coastline comparison unreliable. Neither side has definitively closed the question, and the debate has continued for decades with no new primary evidence emerging. The Longyou Caves. In June 1992, a farmer in Longyou County, Zhejiang Province, drained a pond and found no bottom. There was a carved stone ceiling under the water. The pump ran for 17 days. When the water was finally gone, a vast underground complex had come into view. Archaeologists drained the surrounding ponds. 24 chambers emerged from the bedrock, all cut from the same red sandstone, none connected to any natural cave system, none with any visible access shaft or entrance ramp that would explain how workers entered and operated inside them. The largest chamber covers 1,200 square meters of floor area, with a ceiling height of 30 meters. Stone pillars were deliberately left standing at regular intervals during the excavation. Every exposed surface, walls, ceilings, pillars, carries the same pattern, parallel chisel lines incised at a consistent 60-degree angle to the horizontal, with uniform spacing across thousands of square meters of carved rock. The pattern is too consistent and too uniformly applied to be an incidental byproduct of whatever cutting technique was used. The estimated excavated volume is roughly 1 million cubic meters of sandstone. That material is nowhere. No debris piles, no secondary construction using the stone, no fill deposits in any location consistent with the volume of waste the excavation would have produced, and no historical record from any Chinese dynasty mentions the caves. Given that China's dynasties kept detailed administrative infrastructure records and the construction would have required enormous coordinated labor, that silence is not easily explained away. Roman concrete. The Pantheon's dome, completed around 125 CE under the Emperor Hadrian, is 3 meters in diameter, no steel reinforcement, No internal supports. It has stood continuously for roughly 1900 years through earthquakes, centuries of precipitation, thermal cycling, and biological weathering, and has never been structurally repaired or restored. Roman maritime concrete harbor installations, built in the 1st and 2nd centuries CE at Caesarea Maritima, Pozzuoli, and Baia, remain structurally intact after 2,000 years of continuous seawater exposure. Modern Portland cement structures in comparable marine environments typically show significant structural degradation within 50 years. The difference was studied systematically in research published in American Mineralogist in 2017 and Science Advances in 2023. Roman marine concrete used a specific recipe: seawater, volcanic ash from the Campi Flegrei field near Pozzuoli, and calcium oxide lime. As seawater permeated the said concrete over years and decades, the chemical interaction produced tobermorite, a rare crystalline calcium silicate mineral with an interlocking platy structure that grew directly into the microfractures and pore spaces forming as the concrete aged. In modern concrete, tobermorite growth is associated with destructive expansion and cracking. In Roman concrete, it was apparently the mechanism the material used to repair itself. The Romans did not leave any written record indicating they understood why their concrete worked. They just knew that it did. The Dendera Reliefs. Inside the crypts of the Hathor Temple at Dendera in Upper Egypt, built primarily between roughly 54 BCE and 20 CE and used for religious ceremonial purposes, there is a series of bas-relief carvings that became a flashpoint of popular controversy in the 1990s. The reliefs depict elongated ovoid forms on pedestal-like bases with linear internal features. Reinhard Hebeck and Peter Krasa, in their 1999 book Light for the Pharaohs, argued these represent ancient discharge tubes. The internal features, they claimed, are consistent with the appearance of a plasma discharge inside a low-pressure glass tube, similar to a Crookes tube or a fluorescent lamp. The pedestals and cable-like elements would be analogous to electrode connections and insulating stands. If that reading were correct, it would imply Egyptian knowledge of electricity and vacuum technology thousands of years before either was developed in the modern scientific tradition. Egyptologists reject the interpretation categorically. The reliefs sit inside a religious ceremonial context and are surrounded by hieroglyphic and hieratic text that has been translated. Those translations identify the depicted objects as jihad pillars, a stability symbol associated with the god Osiris, and lotus flowers emerging from lotus buds, both with well-documented iconographic histories stretching back across millennia of Egyptian religious art. The ancient Egyptians left an explanation in writing, carved into the same walls. It just does not happen to be the explanation that makes for a better story. The Saqqara Bird. In 1898, excavators at the Saqqara necropolis near ancient Memphis recovered a small carved wooden bird from a tomb dated to approximately 200 BCE. It weighed 39.12 grams. It was catalogued as a routine bird-shaped votive or decorative object, one of many recovered from the site, and placed in storage at the Egyptian Museum in Cairo. It stayed there for 70 years. In 1969, Khalil Messiha, an Egyptian physician reviewing the museum's collection of bird-shaped artifacts, pulled it out and noticed one thing that separated it from every other avian figurine in the collection. The tail was vertical, not horizontal. Every bird has a horizontal tail. This one had a vertical stabilizer. Messiha also examined the wing cross-section, flat on the bottom, curved on top. The profile of a cambered airfoil. The geometric shape that generates lift through differential pressure. He published a paper in 1972 arguing the object was a scale model glider, implying ancient Egyptian knowledge of aerodynamic principles. Aeronautical engineers have since tested replicas in wind tunnel conditions and confirmed that the wing geometry generates measurable lift at appropriate airspeeds. The critics raised several objections. The object has no undercarriage stub, no propulsion mechanism, no pilot position. Feature: a vertical tail could serve symbolic or decorative purposes without any aerodynamic intent, and a single artifact with no supporting textual artistic or archaeological context is not sufficient grounds for revising the historical record. Both arguments are reasonable. Neither has been decisively refuted. 6 objects. 6 questions that have stayed open for decades, resisting both easy explanation and definitive proof. Make of that what you will.